I continue working in the software engineer for as a software engineer for the same customer for another year, parallel to building boats, like closing my final project. But after a year of doing two jobs at the same time, I told them like I'd like to concentrate or focus on building boats, and that's what I've been doing since nearly 2.5 years now.
Welcome to the next episode of Think Data with Datamin. A big hi from Shruti and Artem from Datamin, and this time we also have someone interesting on call with us, Guilhelm Simons, who is a data professional turned software engineer turned boat builder. So thank you very much, Guilhelm, for taking time and joining with me and Artem today on the call.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
To basically give a spoiler, we used to work together for some time at Funding Circle. That's basically where we met. But afterwards, it's been already more than 5 years, like our careers went completely different paths. So, and your career was especially interesting and made some unexpected turns. That's why we are basically here to talk about it. So it would be great if you give a brief introduction about your career path.
Yeah, so I would say I started like working in data 10 years ago. I was still working as a student for a data consulting company, helping customers like gather, filter, clean the data, and get some kind of value out of it. Work with multiple customers there, and then after 2.5 years there, I joined a startup, ZenCap, part of the Rocket Internet Group. That's where we met, Artem, and there I was doing data analysis and some kind of like data management, I would call. So like a lot of reporting, trying to figure out like problems that were on the platform, but like after they happened. So it was not like a real-time analysis or anything, but it was more like trying to figure out what went wrong and why. And but like sometimes though, like the differences or like the things we were looking at were like tiny differences in what we expected to be, like the numbers and like interest rate or etc. from what actually happened. And it was quite an interesting challenge. Yeah, from there on, I took a class, like a summer class for 3 months on for data science and software engineering, which was very, very interesting. And went on to become some kind of a software engineer for like data heavy software, I would say. I worked for 3 different companies in that time. And mainly my role was to ingest large quantity of data into a platform and do some kind of analysis, like on the fly while the data is flowing in. At first, also some kind of like machine learning, like developing training algorithms to have better forecasting and better alerting systems. And in my last position, I was part of the team that was maintaining the infrastructure facing customer service. So it was like a B2B model, and customers would send us data, and we had a very limited amount of time, very reduced, like to I would say like 500 milliseconds or something like this, to treat the data, pass it through multiple different types of machine learning algorithms, and return it. And that was quite challenging for some of the algorithms that are not used to run in such short time. Yeah. So that's basically it with the data and software part of my career. I continue working in the software engineer for as a software engineer for the same customer for another year, parallel to building boats, like closing my final project. But after a year of doing two jobs at the same time, I told them like I'd like to concentrate or focus on building boats, and that's what I've been doing since nearly 2.5 years now.
Oh,
Mainly building sailing boats and repairing these, and yeah, that's so I moved away from Berlin, and I'm in the north of Germany, not far from Denmark, from the Danish border, living by the sea, and I enjoy it very much here.
that sounds great.
Yeah, so was it the question when we actually heard all of your friends, former colleagues, and so on, when we heard about this, we thought like it was something completely unexpected and romantic, basically, as it heard from outside, to switch from software engineering and data analysis to such a romantic profession as a boat builder. What was it actually for you? Was it something like you dreamed about for a long period of time, or it was something that just all of a sudden came to your mind and your life changed completely?
Yeah, so it came like the professional, like the idea of doing I'm doing an apprenticeship. It's in German Ausbildung, which is a very typical way of learning a practical job in Germany, where you join a school and a company at the same time, and you do part-time, like I would say like 25% of the time you're in school learning the theory and learning about other ways of building boats, and 75% of the time you're in the company and you build actually boats. But because there's not a boat yard that builds all types of boats, you always have like kind of a deficit joining only one company, because they will build a certain type of boat, and that's why it's really nice to have the school on the other side. And for me, it wasn't clear that I would do something like this, but it was clear for me that I wanted to do something with my hands that are like more with wood and building stuff. I started doing wood, like joinery in Berlin, taking like evening classes and training and building furniture for myself. And I've been sailing for, let me think, about like a little bit over 20 years now. So like the whole sailing part and working with wood, and at some point I just realized, okay, maybe it's a good middle ground, like building wooden boats, like between sailing part and building furniture. Came to me like about yeah, I would say like 3 years ago, the idea, and it was it was quite surprising, but I think it came to the right time for me. Once Corona just COVID hit the world and everybody went home, and I kind of thought like, okay, I need to change something, because I don't want to stay home for the next couple of years. And yeah, I applied for this apprenticeship and got it. So
I also wanted to ask you if there is something kind of skills or knowledge that you gathered during your software engineering or data engineering career that really helps you nowadays in your new career.
Yes, so, some parts, yes, definitely. So but I guess they are not specific to like data jobs, but the whole idea of being flexible and have like this very flexible and like project planning approach that you have like in agile software engineering or like any kind of agile project management approach. That helps me quite a lot to approach a project here where people tend to say like, okay, you build the keel, then you build the hull, then you build the deck, and you're finished. And you're like, yeah, but what if you have a problem with the hull? Like, what happens then? And not think of a waterfall and like, yeah, we do this, then we do that, then we do that, and we're finished. But like, okay, what's the buffer? Like, where's the risk? What do you estimate like the chances of actually finishing this step in time? And are there any kind of deadlines you have to watch out for? So for this, it helped me quite a lot. Also the structure, and I guess like for many of my colleagues, it's they've never seen a Kanban board, and it's quite interesting to like introduce this concept to them. It's like, hey, we don't care about the time; we care about like, let's do this, then do that, and those are the dependencies. And like, if you move by 2 days, then yeah, you move everything by 2 days, but it's okay. It's or if you block in one step, then what's the next project you want to do, or what's the next thing that you could tackle? And I guess that's something that's really familiar in the tech world, especially in data and software engineering. It's not at all in boat building, so it was for me quite nice to bring.
That's great. Kind of a shared values that you have. Is there something that you miss in data profession while boat building? So because it's been 2.5 years now. So and do you have any plans to get back to data at some point?
Yeah, so I definitely miss some parts of the data world and software engineering, especially the conceptual work. So you have a problem, especially like the kind of problems I had in previous companies, where you have a large amount of data and you have very very limited resources, either like in terms of hardware or in time or in disk or whatever, and you try to play around with like these kind of restrictions. And first, a big chunk of the work is actually thinking of a concept of how to solve this. And it's, I would say I really miss this because it's not part of building boats. Like the way we build boats is more like a very practical, like step by step. You have a drawing, you have like the general hull, and then there are techniques. They've been there for like hundreds of years. Of course, they like evolve and they get better and stuff, but you don't think of a concept of like how to build a boat. Basically, that is rarely the case. Yeah, so I miss these kind of mental games of thinking, well, what could be the solution? Is there actually a feasible solution to the problem, and this kind of thing? Yeah. So that was the part of what I was missing. Yeah.
Okay, so anytime soon, are you planning to get back to data?
It's a good question. So I'm finishing my apprenticeship in February. I've contacted a couple of companies to see if I could work with them. The problem being that I don't really want to give up the whole boat building part. So I have to find a company that is ready to not have me like full time at all, and to tolerate the fact that I live by the sea and I actually enjoy sailing quite a lot. So I haven't figured out like a way of integrating this into my life again, but yeah, it's could happen in the next year.
That's
So
interesting.
it's basically something like, as you described, you did the first year of your boat building while still finishing the previous product. So you don't want to get completely back to the world of data and software engineering, but to combine it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm curious if this will work out in some way or another.
So just a curious question. after not being there in the data space for 2 years, how do you see the changes, or what kind of changes did you see in the data market? Do you think, okay, so when you look back after like trying to contact companies or seeing the job descriptions, and there are so many things like be it data trends or anything, how do you see the changes? Do you see that, okay, it's still the same, or do you feel, okay, I think it's not different, it's still the same, maybe there are different names, people call it differently?
So to be honest, I didn't focus too much on the evolution of the market. I realized, well, I learned a lot about the market by talking to colleagues, or I have a new project and I'm thinking about like what would be the best tool to tackle this to tackle this problem. And it's not something I had to do in the past a year and a half, I would say. So I kind of lost track of the hottest topics, I would say, in the data world. But in general, I don't think there was a massive revolution in the past year and a half. All the technologies that I see in job interviews, or in job offers and stuff, are not something I'm not familiar with. So I would say generally, okay, it's the same. It's still like one front-end framework per week that's coming out, and it's the hot new thing, and hasn't changed. And in terms of data platforms or data infrastructure, I haven't seen any kind of brand new thing that is, in my opinion, like completely changing the game. But I may have missed something for sure.
Yeah, I think
the revolution is common exactly with Datamin, and in general, maybe the rise of operational analytics, because we are one of the operational analytics solutions. Everybody is pretty young, and it's a nice competition, like the competition of boats. We've seen in your LinkedIn, this brand new boat was released that you was a part of a building team. Was it the first boat that you actually finished, or not the first one?
So yeah, it's the first boat completely built by the boatyard I work for. So it took a long time because it's a quite complex boat. It's a racing boat, and we had basically no experience in building a racing boat. And it's not only a racing boat because it's also like quite a beautiful yacht at the same time. So it was like joining efficiency and speed and lightweight with luxury, I would say, because the whole woodwork, it's not relevant if you just want to race, but if you want to have like a good looking boat and stuff, it's definitely part of it. So you have to play around with both factors. And that was the first boat that came out of the boatyard. The second one comes probably around Christmas. But at the same time, it was not the main part of our job. We fixed boats, like we fixed about, I don't know, hundreds of boats in the meantime. So it's it's the first completely built by us, but not the first boat to leave the boatyard, definitely.
Nice. But yeah, that's nice. Congratulations with that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So exactly the same feeling we have with Datamin. It's not the first startup we built, but this is a first one in this class, at least in Europe, because all the competitors are American ones, and that's going to be another sort of race, and let's see who wins in the long-term perspective.
An unpaid advertisement, so if you want to keep up with the trends and you don't need to feel missed out in the data community, you can join us and you will see the latest trends.
Okay. Yeah, I will consider. I have.
Yeah, probably as the last question, or if you look at your career, data engineering and software engineering are in the end also two different areas, and then boat building. So it's the third one already. So what kind of, based on this amazing experience in different industries, what kind of advice do you maybe have to our followers and listeners, knowing that most of them are data professionals, data engineers, data scientists, data analysts, and so on and so on? Do you have any piece of an advice for them?
That's a good question. Advice to data professionals. For me, it was really helpful or very insightful to actually switch the side. So in the startup where I work, where we met, Artem, I was on the data side, and you were on the engineering side of the platform. There was a wall between both of us, I would say, or two maybe. And in the last company I was working for before I started my apprenticeship, it was the opposite. I was in the software engineering and had a lot of data analysts and data scientists, and there were also two walls between them. And it was quite interesting because we were trying to work very closely with each other, but I felt like exactly the same gap that there was back then. Like I would say, is like also the misunderstanding, or like the different times of schedule, like different types of schedules. Sorry, we had like a 2-week sprint, and they had no sprints at all. They were just, having different projects and a bit of planning, but very, very different. And I remember back in the days that you had the sprints and we had no sprints. And for me, it was super interesting to switch the side and to learn from both sides and be able to actually figure out what I enjoy the most first, what I'm better at. And I'm pretty sure that my experience in being a data analyst at first helped me as a software engineer to communicate the problems to data analysts. So it helped me to understand what's happening in their heads, basically, what could be the problem, what could be the sources of misunderstanding, and this kind of thing. So yeah, I would say, yeah, try different things, try different jobs, try different positions, and figure out what's the best for you, and especially how you can learn from previous jobs to improve the position you're currently at.
That's a brilliant advice. Brilliant advice, I would say. Exactly. It's like when you know both of the sides, and when you have this experience, it's much easier to understand everything, how everything works. Imagine there is someone who tries both sides as sales and engineering. That would be an employee of the year. Someone who understands both of these completely different worlds.
Mm-hmm. I have a company who, a friend who did from sales to boat building, which was also quite interesting. So maybe after boat building, he can become a data engineer. I don't know. We'll see.
Exactly. Yeah, true.
I guess the starting from scratch is a tough part of the whole thing. I would advise everybody to switch, but of course, every time you start from scratch or from nearly scratch, I have the same now in boat building, where I also started from scratch, and it's it's not too easy, but if you enjoy learning, and you enjoy a steep learning curve, then switch again, and until it gets boring to switch, and then maybe you keep the job.
Yeah, it's just like the more than trial and error, it's more of how motivated you are to try out what you like, and probably it might be a great click, like you said. So yeah. So thank you very much, Guilhelm, for taking time and giving us your inputs and sharing great facts about your career transition and about boat building and so many other different interesting updates. So yeah, everyone stay tuned. We will also have this on our podcast as soon as we release this as a video. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for having me. It was very interesting to discuss these topics with you.